When you hear the word Stoicism, what comes to mind? For most people, it's an image of calm, unemotional people enduring hardship with a stiff upper lip, or perhaps the noble figure of Marcus Aurelius, pondering life's mysteries in silence. But what if I told you that much of what you think you know about Stoicism is a lie? Yes, Stoicism has been misunderstood, oversimplified, and misrepresented over the centuries. It's been reduced to clichés, misused in self-help circles, and twisted into ideas that the original Stoics would barely recognize. And when it comes to ancient Rome, where Stoicism flourished, the reality is far more complex than the myths we've been told. Today, we're uncovering the truth behind 10 lies about Stoicism in ancient Rome. These misconceptions might surprise you, challenge your beliefs, and even change the way you think about one of history's most influential philosophies. Let's dive in. Lie number 1. Stoics were emotionless. One of the biggest misconceptions about Stoicism is that it teaches people to suppress all emotions and live like robots. This couldn't be further from the truth. The Stoics didn't reject emotions, they understood them deeply. What they taught was mastery over destructive emotions like anger, fear, and envy. Seneca, one of Rome's greatest Stoic philosophers, wrote extensively about managing emotions, not erasing them. He believed in feeling joy, love, and even sorrow, but in a balanced way that doesn't overwhelm you. Stoicism isn't about being cold, it's about maintaining composure and perspective, even in challenging times. Lie number 2. Stoicism was only for the elite. It's true that some of Stoicism's most famous practitioners, like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, were wealthy and powerful, but the philosophy wasn't reserved for the elite. Epictetus, another prominent Stoic, was born a slave and rose to become one of the most respected teachers of his time. Stoicism was designed to be practical and accessible to anyone, regardless of social status. It wasn't about wealth or power. It was about character and virtue. The Stoics believed that anyone, from a slave to an emperor, could live a good life by mastering their thoughts and actions. Lie number 3. Stoics believed in passive acceptance. Many people think Stoicism is about passively accepting whatever life throws at you, but this is a gross oversimplification. While Stoicism emphasizes accepting what you can't control, it also encourages taking deliberate, meaningful action where you can make a difference. Marcus Aurelius didn't sit idly by when Rome was at war or facing a plague. He took decisive action as an emperor while maintaining the Stoic mindset of focusing on what was within his control. Stoicism isn't about passivity, it's about resilience and rational decision-making. Lie number 4. Stoicism was against pleasure. Another common myth is that the Stoics rejected all forms of pleasure and lived austere, joyless lives. This is a misunderstanding of their views on moderation. The Stoics didn't believe pleasure was inherently bad. They simply warned against becoming enslaved by it. Seneca enjoyed wealth and luxury, but constantly reminded himself not to rely on it for happiness. He argued that true contentment comes from within, not from external pleasures. Stoicism teaches balance. Enjoy life's pleasures, but don't let them control you. Lie number 5. Stoics were detached from relationships. There's a myth that Stoics avoided personal connections to protect themselves from pain. In reality, the Stoics placed great value on relationships. They believed in showing kindness, compassion, and fairness to others. Marcus Aurelius wrote about his love and gratitude for his family, friends, and mentors. The Stoics saw human connection as essential to a virtuous life. What they discouraged was unhealthy attachment, clinging to relationships in a way that leads to suffering. Lie number 6. Stoicism was only a philosophy for men. While most of the famous Stoics we hear about were men, the philosophy was not exclusive to them. Roman women, particularly those in elite circles, were influenced by Stoic teachings. Portia, the wife of Brutus, was known for her Stoic composure and resilience. Stoicism's principles of self-discipline, rationality, and virtue were universal. They applied to anyone willing to live by them, regardless of gender. Lie to cast 7. Stoics were always calm and rational. It's tempting to think of the Stoics as paragons of calmness, but they were human too. Even the greatest Stoics struggled with their emotions and made mistakes. Marcus Aurelius, for instance, wrote meditations as a way to remind himself of Stoic principles, not because he was perfect at living them. Stoicism is a practice, not a state of perfection. It's about striving to be better every day, not about never slipping up. The idea that Stoics were always serene is a myth that overlooks the humanity of these thinkers. Lie number 8. Stoicism was a religious philosophy. While Stoicism does touch on spiritual themes, like living in harmony with nature and the universe, it was not a religion. The Stoics believed in a rational, ordered cosmos, but their philosophy was grounded in logic and ethics rather than divine revelation or worship. This made Stoicism unique in a Roman world dominated by religious rituals and superstitions. It appealed to those seeking a practical framework for living a good life, regardless of their personal beliefs about the gods. Lie number 9. Stoicism was widely practiced in Rome. While Stoicism was influential in ancient Rome, it wasn't the dominant philosophy of the time. Other schools of thought, like Epicureanism and Cynicism, also thrived. Additionally, the majority of Romans weren't philosophers. They were busy with the day-to-day struggles of survival, entertainment, and ambition. Stoicism was a minority philosophy embraced by the educated and reflective, but it didn't define Roman society as a whole. The average Roman citizen likely knew little about Stoic teachings and was more interested in practical concerns than philosophical debates. Lie number 10. Stoicism was about denying fate. Lastly, there's a misconception that Stoicism was about denying fate or rebelling against it. In truth, Stoicism teaches the opposite, embracing fate and working with it rather than against it. The Stoics called this concept amor fati, the love of one's fate. They believed that by accepting what happens as part of a greater order, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. This doesn't mean passivity. It means aligning your actions with what life presents, without fighting reality. Understanding these lies about Stoicism not only helps us appreciate the philosophy more deeply, but also reveals how it has been oversimplified and misinterpreted over time. While Stoicism has been reduced to clichés in popular culture, the true teachings of this philosophy are far richer and more nuanced than many realize. To explore the broader implications of these misconceptions, let's consider how these lies shaped and sometimes distorted the way Stoicism was practiced in ancient Rome and how we view it today. First, the idea that Stoics were emotionless isn't just a misrepresentation, it undermines the entire point of Stoicism. The Stoics never denied the existence of emotions. Instead, they sought to understand and work with them. Anger, for example, wasn't something to be ignored but something to be mastered. Seneca's writings on anger are among his most profound works. He argued that anger was one of the most destructive forces in human nature, but he also emphasized that it could be tamed through rational thought and self-awareness. In the chaos of ancient Rome, this advice was practical and necessary. Whether you were a senator navigating political rivalries or a merchant dealing with difficult customers, mastering your emotions was key to survival. Yet, the stereotype of the emotionless Stoic persists, perhaps because it's easier to reduce the philosophy to a single concept rather than acknowledge its complexity. Similarly, the idea that Stoicism was reserved for the elite erases the contributions of figures like Epictetus, who proved that anyone could embrace the philosophy regardless of their circumstances. As a former slave, Epictetus lived a life of hardship, but used Stoicism as a tool to rise above his situation. His teachings remind us that Stoicism isn't about privilege, it's about perspective. Even today, people from all walks of life find solace in Stoic principles. The modern resurgence of Stoicism owes much to its accessibility. It doesn't require wealth, power, or formal education, just a willingness to reflect on your thoughts and actions. This universality was true in ancient Rome as well, even if the philosophy's most famous practitioners happened to be emperors and senators. Another misconception, that Stoicism promoted passive acceptance, is particularly misleading. The Stoics believed in taking action where possible while accepting the outcomes they couldn't control. Marcus Aurelius is a perfect example of this. As emperor, he didn't passively accept the challenges of his reign. He led military campaigns, implemented reforms, and worked tirelessly to maintain stability in an empire fraught with turmoil. Yet, Marcus also understood the limits of his power. In his meditations, he wrote about the importance of focusing on what was within his control and letting go of what wasn't. This balance between action and acceptance is what made Stoicism such a powerful tool for leadership and a philosophy that remains relevant to this day. The misconception that Stoicism rejected pleasure also misses the mark. While the Stoics warned against overindulgence, they didn't advocate for a life devoid of joy. Seneca, for instance, often spoke about the importance of appreciating simple pleasures. In a letter to a friend, he described the happiness he found in a modest meal, a quiet moment, or a good conversation. For the Stoics, the key wasn't to reject pleasure, but to avoid becoming dependent on it. They understood that true contentment comes from within, not from external sources. This teaching was particularly relevant in a society like ancient Rome, where wealth and luxury often led to corruption and moral decay. One of the most enduring myths about Stoicism is that it discouraged relationships. This couldn't be further from the truth. The Stoics placed a high value on relationships and the responsibilities that come with them. Marcus Aurelius frequently expressed gratitude for the people in his life, from his family to his teachers. The Stoics believed that by cultivating kindness, fairness, and empathy, we could strengthen our relationships and live more virtuous lives. Even the idea that Stoicism was a philosophy exclusive to men is a product of historical bias rather than the philosophy itself. While we know less about female practitioners of Stoicism, there's evidence that women in ancient Rome were influenced by Stoic teachings. Portia, for example, demonstrated remarkable Stoic resilience during times of political upheaval. Her story, like that of many Roman women, challenges the misconception that philosophy was the domain of men alone. The idea that Stoicism was a religious philosophy is another misrepresentation. While the Stoics believed in a rational, ordered universe, their philosophy was grounded in reason, not dogma. This distinction made Stoicism unique in a Roman world filled with religious rituals and superstitions. It offered a way of thinking that was practical and adaptable, allowing individuals to find meaning and purpose without relying on external beliefs. Perhaps one of the most surprising misconceptions is the idea that Stoicism was widely practiced in Rome. While it had a significant influence, particularly among the educated elite, it wasn't the dominant philosophy of the time. Other schools of thought, like Epicureanism, competed for attention. Additionally, the average Roman citizen was more concerned with the practicalities of daily life, earning a living, maintaining social status, and navigating the political landscape, than with philosophical debates. This doesn't diminish Stoicism's importance, but it does remind us that it was one philosophy among many, not a universal way of life. The fact that it has endured while other schools have faded speaks to its timeless appeal and practicality. Finally, the misconception that Stoicism denied fate completely misrepresents one of its core principles. The Stoics embraced the idea of amor fati, the love of one's fate. They believed that by accepting life's events, both good and bad, as part of a greater order, we could find peace and purpose. This teaching wasn't about resignation. It was about aligning your actions with reality and focusing on what you can control. In many ways, this principle is the heart of Stoicism. It's what allows people to navigate life's challenges with grace and resilience, and it's a reminder that while we may not be able to control the world, we can control how we respond to it. So, what do these 10 lies about Stoicism teach us? They show us that Stoicism is far more complex and nuanced than the stereotypes suggest. It's not about being emotionless, joyless, or detached. It's about living with intention, clarity, and virtue. And while it may have been misunderstood in ancient Rome, its lessons remain as relevant today as they were 2,000 years ago. If you found this exploration of Stoicism insightful, consider sharing it with someone who might appreciate a fresh perspective on this timeless philosophy. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into ancient wisdom and its modern applications. Together, we can challenge misconceptions, embrace the truth, and apply the wisdom of the past to navigate our present. As we unravel these 10 lies about Stoicism, one thing becomes clear. Stoicism is a philosophy of balance, resilience, and humanity, not perfection. The misconceptions that paint it as emotionless, elitist, or rigid strip away its true essence. At its core, Stoicism offers practical tools for navigating the unpredictability of life while striving for inner peace and virtue. What's fascinating about these misunderstandings is how they highlight the tension between philosophical ideals and the reality of human nature. Ancient Rome, like today's world, was a place of contradictions. While the Stoics preached moderation and rationality, Rome itself was a culture of excess, ambition, and spectacle. The Stoics weren't blind to this. They lived within it, wrestling with the same challenges and temptations that we do. Their philosophy wasn't about escaping the world, it was about thriving within it. Take Marcus Aurelius, for example. His meditations weren't written as declarations of perfection, but as personal reminders to stay on the Stoic path. He struggled with anger, grief, and the weight of his responsibilities as emperor, yet he constantly reflected on how to meet these challenges with composure and clarity. His humanity is what makes his writings so relatable, even centuries later. The same applies to Seneca, who, despite his Stoic principles, lived a life of wealth and luxury. He often critiqued the excesses of Roman society while admitting his own imperfections. Stoicism isn't about living an idealized version of life. It's about striving to be better, even when the world around you is chaotic and flawed. And that's what makes Stoicism so timeless. It doesn't demand that you be perfect or that the world be free of challenges. Instead, it asks you to focus on what you can control, to find strength in adversity, and to act with integrity, no matter the circumstances. It's a philosophy grounded in practicality, not dogma, a way of thinking that empowers individuals to navigate life's complexities with grace. So, what can we take away from this exploration of the myths surrounding Stoicism? First, we can appreciate the depth and nuance of this ancient philosophy. Stoicism isn't a rigid set of rules. It's a flexible framework for living well. Second, we can recognize that the misconceptions about Stoicism often reveal more about our own biases and misunderstandings than about the philosophy itself. And finally, we can be inspired to apply Stoic principles in our own lives, not as a way to escape the messiness of the world, but as a way to find peace within it. If this exploration of Stoicism has changed the way you view this ancient philosophy, consider sharing it with someone who might find it valuable. Let's challenge these misconceptions together and rediscover the timeless wisdom of the Stoics. And don't forget to subscribe for more insights into history, philosophy, and how ancient ideas can help us navigate modern challenges. Together, we can uncover the truth, embrace resilience, and live with purpose.